Okay, hello friends. So you are still struggling to resolve dependencies with multiple teams? Don't worry. Today we have Johanna Rothman with us, joining all the way from Boston, USA. Friends, with decade of experience, Johanna is the author of 20 books about many aspects of product development. She is also known as pragmatic manager, offer frank advice for your tough problems. She helps leaders and teams learn to see simple and reasonable things that might work. So equipped with that knowledge, they can decide how to adapt their product development. Friends, please take a pause and hit like before we start this session because I'm sure that this session is full of wisdom. So welcome Johanna one more time and thanks for giving your time. Thanks for accepting
Well, thank
our invitation.
thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here.
Thanks a lot, Johanna. So, Johanna, actually, I just read your blog uh, in which you have explained in detail about the dependencies, how to work with those dependencies. So, before we jump into that actual topic, why don't you tell us about yourself a little bit, and then we start our session.
Um, so I've been practicing in the software field since 1977, before many of you were born, which is totally fine. I've been a developer, a tester, project manager, program manager, director, VP. I own my own company. I've been a consultant since 1994. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. And friends, she also have two blogs, one on her site jrothman.com, and she have one more personal blog, createadaptablelife.com. I will put the link in the description. I will also put her LinkedIn, profile in the description. You can always check with her. She's so helpful, so I can't tell you guys. So leverage that thing. And with this thought, Yona, please go ahead. Tell us about dependencies, which a lot of people struggle nowadays with the agile and the scrum in place still. I think that will be the
So
problem so long.
yeah, I think that what happens is that management says, "Oh, we really want this agile thing," or the team say, "We really want to iterate and increment," right? So we want to use some kind of an agile approach, but the team either does not have all of the cross-functional skills that they need, or they somehow, even if they do have all the skills that they need, they don't organize in a way that makes it possible for the team to be the unit of work. Instead, individuals are the unit of work. And if you've ever seen, um, I write a lot about resource efficiency thinking versus flow efficiency thinking. Flow efficiency thinking says the team is a unit of work and we watch the work as we look at our system. Resource efficiency thinking says every individual has to be maximally busy. Well, the problem with maximal busyness is you're not optimizing for the outcomes. So, in the blog post that you saw, I talked about a team where they had separate people, they separated code review from the the rest of the work. So, somebody would take the story, they would do all the development on it, they would wait for code review. They would ask other people for code review, which might happen a minimum of 24 hours later. And then, at some point during that day, the person did the code review and offered feedback to the first person, right? That first developer. Well, that's all good. And if everything is fine, if the code review goes well, and the first developer has nothing to do, now it's ready for a tester. But how many times in your development experience does this actually ever happen? I excelled at not testing the one thing where there was a problem. Excelled at it, right? I would have unit tests which I I was not smart enough to do test-driven development in the 70s and 80s. I just was not, right? So let's just let's just say that. However, I almost always wrote a lot of unit tests after I wrote the code. I never wrote all the necessary unit tests. I didn't. So when people offered me feedback on my code, when we had code review on my code, almost every time somebody found something, and it was always where I had not written the test. So the feedback loops, if you think about the feedback loops inside your team, there's if a developer starts a story and then has to wait for somebody else to do code review, and then there's a feedback loop from the code review. Now that developer is multitasking, right? That first developer. So, Sunan, if you're that first developer, you start another story after you've asked for a code review because it's all about being busy, right? That resource efficiency thinking. Now, I have done code review. I offer you some feedback, and hopefully it's useful feedback. Um, and you say, Johanna's right about this one or two things. I'll do that. This other third thing, I don't have to do that, and I can explain to her why. But now you have to interrupt that second story that you were doing. So it's a little feedback loop inside the iteration if you're using Scrum, or inside the team if you're using Kanban. And that creates a dependency. I'm going to take a drink of water. Every time we create dependencies, we increase our WIP, our work in progress, and we slow everything down. So instead, if we said, we're going to pair, and Sunan and Johanna are happy to pair together. I don't irritate you too much. You don't irritate me at all, right? We learn to accommodate each other. Now, as I type, you say, what are you thinking over here? I don't quite understand that. And then 10 minutes later, when you're typing, I say, tell me more about this thing that you just typed. We have immediate code review. We have reduced our WIP, our work in progress, to one item for the two of us. We have immediate code review. And then if we have a separate person for testing, we are pretty sure we are done with this thing before the testing starts. We are starting to think in flow efficiency, right? Where we watch the work, not the people. That we want the work to flow through the team, not the people to be so busy. So that's just one way to think about how do we resolve dependencies. And that one is inside the team. So, Sunan, I'm sure you have many questions for me.
Thanks, Johanna. So we discussed about all these challenges, right? And one of the example which you just gave, that peer-to-peer review that can be done. But what about when we have teams across the geographies, or teams where we don't have a direct, I would say, interaction, you know? So in those kind of scenarios, how we can do that? Because we struggle a lot as a Scrum Master day-to-day basis, because in a way we don't have authority, or those teams are not directly connect with us, but then again we have a dependency on them for various things, so how to deal with those kind of situations?
So, what hours of overlap do you have with the people in one location and the people in another location? If you don't have at least 4 hours of overlap, Mark Kilby and I say you cannot be an agile team. You can you can collaborate sometimes, you can cooperate handing work over, but you're not going to be a really agile team. So um, let's just take your example. You're in the Netherlands, and how far are where are people where where do the people you work with, where are they located?
Yeah, so mostly in let's say India and in France.
Okay.
So France is easy because we are into a same time zone, CET. And India is also in a way is easy because it's just like 3.5 hours of time difference that we can manage.
Hmm.
The struggle is with the USA people. So by the time it's my evening, 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, right? By the time I'm just logging out, those people are just coming in. So then the struggles start.
And that's because you're not a real team with the US people. You have a team with the people in Europe and India, and the people in the US. You can call it a team all you want. It's not a team.
Hmm.
Instead, right? And I would, if you're a Scrum Master or an Agile coach, I would actually give this challenge nicely to your management and say, how can we create independent feature teams with the people in Europe and the people in India, and create separate feature teams in the US? Because then, if they're all on different features, you don't have to worry about this business of interdependencies, right? So, and features go through the stack. They start off at the UI, the API, and the app layer, the middleware, and the platform. Feature teams always go through the stack. For those of you who are only listening and not watching, my hand is going up and down through the stack. If you have teams that are component teams, they go across the stack, right? You have an API team, or God forbid, a UI team. You have an app layer team all across the stack. That's not a recipe for agile success. It's barely a recipe for any other kind of product success, because you cannot actually finish the product, right? The first time that you can get to a finished product is when the tester tests it. That's way too late. Now, there are things you can do, and there's the blog post that you found, Sunand, has a series, and the component teams blog post is there are a couple of component team blog posts with that post. I assume you'll put that in the notes for this episode. So if everybody who works through across the architecture integrates and delivers into the code base for internal use at least once a day, you can kind of have a um, fake agile, right? FAUX, faux agile. It's better than waterfall because you will be able to deliver some things on a fairly regular basis. But it's not the same as a cross functional team working together. So when you, I, since I'm in the US, I see this from the later time zone perspective. And I think I find it very interesting that you said, yeah, Europe and India can really collaborate, but those people in the US, we're not doing so well. And that's because you're not a team, right? So you can call any group of people a team, but unless they can actually collaborate on the work together, they are not a team.
Okay. Okay. So now I can see two challenges over here, Yona. First is how to make our management understand this, because most of the time the contracts are always been written, and by the time people will join, the teams have already been decided, and the project is already over by that time. So how to make them understand, that's an important aspect, because most of the people struggle. I get a lot of these queries that my team or my PO product owner, specifically the product owners, are sitting somewhere at the client side. It can be USA or any other country, and most of the time the team sitting at, let's say, in India, they are dependent on for a lot of input to the BAs and the POs who are into the different time zones, right? So that's the one of the challenge which I can see. And
So,
yeah,
yeah,
please.
go ahead. So in order to help people see, literally see the problem, Mark and I recommend a distributed hours of overlap chart. So I happen to put that in the chat for us. I'm sure you will take that link and put it into the resources for
Sure,
this episode.
sure.
Yeah. So I think the first thing is to help people see it, right? The more the more we help our management understand that they can call they can call any group of people a team, but unless people can collaborate, they're not a team. If you show them the hours of overlap chart and you say, when are these people supposed to work together? Right? When you if so from the US perspective, I when I have to work with people from India, it's almost always either my evening or their evening. In what lifetime is that reasonable to ask of people? Evening is for not work. Evening is for reading. Is for, well, you know what I do. Um, Evening is for being with your family. Evening is for doing all kinds of other things that are not work. Yes, that's the hours of overlap chart. If you click on that chart, that will pop up into a new window. Oh, there you are. Um, and you can see where people are working, right? When they are working. Now, what's really interesting about this chart is everybody in here is in the Eastern time zone in the United States, and they don't have a lot of overlap to work together because
Hmm.
people have other responsibilities. Now, this later on in this particular article, there's a new hours of overlap chart. So if you, yeah, scroll down. Um, oh,
I
maybe.
think this
Oh,
is the
that.
last one. I think I have just
Oh,
opened it.
okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, so that's the original one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's a very interesting problem. When do you have 100% overlap with a team? When do you have enough other overlap? Is 79% kind of okay? Maybe. Is 86% okay? Maybe. I think it's really important to say what makes sense for your team. Can you go back to the second chart, please? Yeah. So here's where this particular chart actually says we have 100% at 10 and 11 Eastern time, and then again at 2 and 3 Eastern time. We also have 86% at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So we now have 4 hours of 100% overlap with everybody. Now, is this perfect for every single day of the year? No, things happen. But the more overlap you have, the more you can work as an agile team. Now, you asked before, how do you tell people, how do you convince management that you don't have a distributed agile team or really even a distributed team? Show them this chart. If you added the Indian times here for people in India to collaborate, there's there's zero overlap. Maybe with the guy who comes in at 7 in the morning, but there's zero overlap otherwise. Why would
Hmm.
you do this to people, right? Why would a manager say you and you everywhere across the globe, you're a team? No, you're not a team. Now, when Mark and I did the research for this book, this is From Chaos to Successful Distributed Agile Teams, right? That's the name of this book. I we actually asked people, did any did anybody have success with Follow the Sun? We found zero, right? Zero, the null set, zero teams who had any success with Follow the Sun. Some teams had some success for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. But the problem is you have to document all of your handoffs. If you're documenting handoffs, you're not working as a team. You cannot take any advantage of how teams work together. The reason why is when we work together, I say something and you say, "Oh, that's very interesting." Hopefully you actually mean it. And when you say something interesting, I say, "I didn't think of that." And I can tell you, I definitely mean that. So it's that serendipity of working together of when the ideas collide against each other. That's why pairing works so well. I did not even talk about mobbing or ensembling, right? The reason that works so well is that the entire team is learning together. Software product development of any kind is not about outputs. It's all about outcomes, and we only have outcomes when we learn together. So, well, we can have some outcomes if we don't learn together, but we need to have enough learning together to actually finish a product that works. You've seen, and I bet all these people who are struggling with teams in over here with people over here and people over there, they don't see the outcomes until many of those iterations that I described in code review occur in their team. That's because the team is not really a team. The team is only a team in management's eyes. So the first is it the first law of consulting? Yeah, maybe I'll do this in the consulting book. Is help your clients see, visualize what's going on. Little charts like this are perfect for that. So
Mhm.
if you have a distributed team, help your manager see what's really going on and say, people need time. Uh, People need to choose their start time. They need to choose their end time within reason. Within reason, people need to get to eat every day for lunch, right? It's all within reason. People are willing to flex, but it's really important to say what really makes sense for our team. And that means management cannot dictate the team's hours.
Absolutely. So yeah, we have also done a similar kind of thing, but in a different way. So rather than whole team, what we have done that I don't know whether to use the term, but then we use something called proxy product owner. So one person who is there in India, he's acting as a PO for them, and now this person is interacting with the main PO who is based in USA, and in this way the information is being shared rather than whole team slog in the night. This person is doing that job. He's coming in the shifts in a way like the late hours in India, and this is the one way by which we have and of course as and when is required, the team are doing that sync up calls once in a week or twice in a week, the way you have mentioned, the 2 hours or 1 hour of overlap. So I mean, these are the some of the ways, which we can thought, because interaction is required. The communication is the key in any kind of project. So the more you communicate in a way, it will be better for the team, right? And we also ensure that views are available on our retrospectives, planning sessions, so that we can interact. And but then he's not available on day-to-day basis. But then that's the reason we have our proxy PO in place. So yeah, you can think of any other ways because I mean I know like this is the best solution that if we have the team in the same time zone at least couple of hours of overlap. But now let's say the team is now let's assume this example of India and USA. Now what are the other possible ways you can think of? Now the project is there and it's very difficult to change, the team structure.
Okay, no, it's not difficult to
Okay.
change.
Okay.
Somebody actually said, you, and you, you're a team. You can say, no, we're not a team, and here's why. So you can use the co-pilot method. Yes, you can. I would actually say, and if you want to use a co-pilot, then you need to have a product value team, a product leadership team that says there's a product owner for every well, a product manager for this product, this feature set, and then a product owner kind of person everywhere there's a clump of people. You don't have a team, right? I don't know how to say this any more clearly. You do not have a team. You have a group of people in one place and a group of people in another place, and management says, you, and you collaborate. You have all the data in the world that says you cannot easily collaborate. So here's what I would do next. I would measure the cycle time for one item to go through the team. I would show your managers how much time you waste, how much time you have to wait for people to get back to you. This is
Absolutely.
all about attending to the flow of work through for the item, not how busy the people are. So measure the cycle time and measure the cycle time for several items, not just one. When I teach my workshops, I always teach people to measure the cycle time for everything that they finished in the last 3 weeks. And you know what I often find? They finished one thing in the last 3 weeks. And at least 2/3 of that time was spent waiting for this. I asked them to measure their WIP, that work in progress. They often have WIP that's way too high. They have 45 things in progress, one finished. Now,
Abs-
I mean, I'm not asking for anybody to say, and I'm not going to embarrass you. I guarantee you, if you have 6 people on your team, you have at least 6 items in progress, and maybe you finish one in the past week or two. I That's the data that management needs. Now, they think that they're spending money on salary. They are not. They are spending money on the time that they waste in getting to finished features. This is why we need to talk about features through the architecture. My hand is going up and down again. We need to show people cycle time, management especially, because they always want to know, when is it going to be done? Well, you can say in the last 3 weeks we finish one thing because we're all busy and we're so divorced from each other in the time space continuum. So if we're that far apart and you think that we can, if you think you can afford to keep calling us a team and to keep referring to us as a team, here's the cycle time you can expect. Now, which one of these 45 things that's in progress do you want us to finish next? Because we can finish one of them and it will take us a couple weeks. This is the kind of information you need to show your managers. You need to not just talk through them, but show them the value stream map. Show them how long everything takes.
Absolutely.
Now, well, go. Do you have a question now? I'm
No, no,
ranting
no.
and raving. Sorry.
No. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. No, I got your point. It's a very valid point, and I think, yeah, with the lead and lag time, we can always show them that what is the waste which we are generating in this project. So that's absolutely, yeah, great point, Yona. Okay, I have one more follow-up question on this. Sorry. uh, we understood this part. Now let's talk about, as I have discussed in the beginning. Now sometimes we have few teams who are not directly associated with us. So for example, for me, item A is very high priority item, and then I am dependent on team other team B, right? But for them,
Hmm.
that item is not that high priority. For them, there is some other priority item which is defined by their POs. So in this kind of scenarios, what we can do best as a team?
So this is where you actually need either a project or a program manager, somebody needs to say, here is the overarching goal for this effort. Anything that does not lead to this effort finishing, all of that work needs to not be done. So if you this is the problem with this is one of the principles, excuse me, in the Modern Management Made Easy books. If you have a goal that's a subset of an organization's goal, right, your team has that goal, and that's not necessarily the same as this other team, and they have you either have dependencies on them, as you said, or they have dependencies on you. If you have a subordinate goal and you work towards a subordinate goal, you will never get that product out. Somebody somewhere has to say, this is our optimum goal. This goal is number 1, this goal is number 2, this goal is number 3. I happen to do that through the project portfolio. And I will say this, if you're using SAFe, nobody ever gets to define which one is number 1, which one is number 2, which one is number 3. Nobody is doing that. So I don't find SAFe particularly helpful. If you read my Manage Your Project Portfolio book, you can see how managers commit to one team. Teams do not commit to management. Management commits to a team that they will do this. And here is the ranking order of all of the work in the organization, all of it. So I don't see why this should not even be a question, but it's because of subordinate goals. And I don't know how to get that through people's heads, right? Subordinate goals are almost the worst thing that ever happens in an organization. I have a recent blog post. I think this one. Yes. Here I'm going to put another message in the chat, another post in the chat. This is about asking one question that might help people. What 1 to 3 projects currently in flight will make the most difference for your department or organization in the next 1 to 3 months? Now, scroll down just a little bit. Yeah, that's the question. And then there are all kinds of rules when I facilitate that question. And the reason is because, again, you don't just have WIP in your project, right? That work in progress. You have all this WIP across the organization. Maybe nobody should be working on your project. Maybe you should all go to that other project where you have a dependency and help them finish everything. Maybe that's what everybody should do, right? So it does not make sense for us to finish our work if that work is so low on the list. And it does not make sense for other people to finish their work if that work is too low on the list. And there's all kinds of, the department heads or the people who decide have to be honest with themselves. And that's one of the reasons I said 1 to 3 projects. If every department head has 3 projects, you're still going to be in trouble. But if everybody has 1 project, now you might actually have a shot at getting to a project portfolio that makes sense. WIP, the whole idea of work in progress, extensive WIP across the organization is anti-agile. That's that one thing, that one thought, thinking in resource efficiency, not flow efficiency, thinking everybody has to be busy. The more busy everybody is, the less throughput you have. That's Little's law. So the more the less throughput you have, the more pressure everybody has. So to ease the pressure, you need to work on less and finish it.
Okay. Okay. Sounds great. Okay, Yona, I was just going through your blog post last week, and I found this interesting word that is satellite team. We call it as a
Yep.
hybrid way of working also. So, would you like to also include couple of points with respect to hybrid way of working nowadays? Because most of the people are doing that. Some people going to office couple of days, and then they are doing work from home because of this Corona. Last 2 years was like that only. So, would you like to share uh, some important points with respect to hybrid remote working?
Sure. In some ways, nebulas, where everybody is dispersed, is much, much easier than than a satellite team. Because satellite teams often you forget about the people who are not there. So I want to ask several questions, and nobody has to answer this, but I would like people to think about their answers. So, how will you have a successful meeting with the people who are in person and the people who are remote? And I'm assuming that the people who are remote are not all in one other location. If they are, you have a cluster team where some people are here and some people are there. But I'm assuming some people are in their home offices, some people are in, um, excuse me, one location in inside a building somewhere that the company owns, and then other people might be in the building also in different locations. How will you have meetings? What will you do? Right. I think you need video and audio every single time you have people who are not with you. And that will help you remember all those people who are not in person, right? The video reminds you of that. I really, so, I mean, I have a blog post with the basics, but I think it's really important to think, how will you, sorry, how will you have a meeting? When do you need to have meetings? It's the same problem. As when people were remote. What makes sense for all of those meetings? And um, if you inside one um, conference room, you might actually have something like an owl, right? A lot of people think about video for the people who are not there, but you also need video for the people who are there. So I really like to think about how we can make our in-person real time, right, our real time meetings successful when some people are in person and some people are not. um I think it's really important to say what are our working agreements for our for when we work separately and when we work together. I don't think you can have the same working agreements as you had before. You really need to think about it. Even if just who gets to talk when, right? You and I can pretty much decide on this because we're the only two people in the real time meeting. But just imagine we had another person. This is this is not a trivial problem. I think satellite teams are the worst of all possible worlds. Nebulas are totally fine. Co-located are totally fine. Clusters, if there's only two or three clusters, I think you can manage that. But satellites, oh, really, really hard.
Absolutely agree. Okay, okay, Yona. I think I'm good for a time being. Let me
Okay.
enable my video one more time. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we have discussed a couple of good points today with respect to dependencies. First of all, we should tell our management that we are not working as a team if we are into, we don't have a overlap hours, right? So that's a very important thing. And how we can do that by showing them the lag and lead time, show them actual in front of them that this is the waste which we are generated as a team. So it's better to
Hmm.
create the feature teams, rather than
Oh yeah.
having these clusters of team, right? So it's very important, I think, as a role of agile coach or a scrum master to make them understand and
Hmm.
work on those kind of thing. And if required, hire consultant like Johanna.
Well, well, there's that. Yeah, hire me. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, absolutely. And before we wind up, if you can also just touch base on this velocity thing. I think you have also written about that um, cycle time is not velocity.
Right. So I stopped using velocity data and for anything several years ago. I think probably by 2017. I mean, a long, long time ago. I never measure velocity. I don't measure story points. I only use cycle time. And what I find is that because cycle time answers when, how long will things take and when will it be done, right? That you can only get that information with cycle time. Um, Back in the origins of my career, we talked about ideal time and clock time.
Yeah.
Ideal time was like velocity. Clock time was like cycle time. And so we had all these weird things that multiply your ideal time by 3 because it just takes that long at a fudge factor. Oh, nonsense, right? Cycle time actually gives you the answer. And cycle time reinforces working as a team because you want to reduce the cycle time for the time it takes you to finish a piece of work. It also helps you see how to right size your stories. Velocity does not do that. So um, when I started to say years ago, I really liked 1 day stories, my client said, I don't see how you can say that. Every single story takes us 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. How can it take you that long? Well, they were all busy doing other things. So when I started to help them measure cycle time, that changed how they thought about the work and it changed how they thought about collaboration. So I find that cycle time is a really helpful tool to help us see what our system is as a team and to help us give good data to our management.
Okay. So, just because most, if not most, but lot of people are also new in this profession as a Scrum Master or a Agile coach. Would you like to just give a small example, like how to calculate it, that the cycle time with the
Sh-
help of just one example, small example?
Sure. Make a value stream map, and if you take that, do you want me to share my screen
Yeah,
or
yeah. Please, please,
do you?
please. You can do that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Please. Thank
All
you.
right. I
I'm just
will.
again going off
All
because of
right. Let
bandwidth
me
issues. Let me
uh
put you
let me
on.
see if I just, yeah. I'm not going to share my messy desktop. I will share just my screen. Hopefully,
Yes.
you can
Yeah.
see just
Yeah.
this. Okay.
Yeah. Map the
You can
value stream.
probably
Yeah.
see all the other tabs now. Can you still see my
Yes.
image?
Yes. Yes. I
Okay,
can.
good.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a value stream map for one feature. Notice that this is all collaboration. This team is collaborating. So Stephanie and Dan pair, and in parallel, either physically not too far away or virtually, all on Zoom or Teams or whatever. They work together for about 4 hours, and then they say it's time to verify because Tim has been developing the tests as Stephanie and Dan have proceeded. Um, Tim says, "Watch me run this," and then they say, "Oh, nuts! We need to fix a couple things. hang on, Tim actually watches them fix the code. Tim does not go away, right? So they all continued to collaborate. Now, Peter, the product owner, is not quite there. Um, he has other things to do. This is not surprising. Product owners tend to be really, really busy people. So they have to wait for him for half an hour. If I were them, I would have had lunch. but but maybe they take a walk. Maybe they take a break of some sort. And then Peter reviews the story and he marks it as done. That takes a total of quarter of an hour, right? Not very much time. So the work time there is 4.75 hours. The wait time is half an hour. Their total cycle time is 5.25 hours. I might call this a day because they're not going to do much else that day, right? They have email to do, they have probably other meetings. If you can get 6 good hours in a day, I would call that a really, really good day of work. So that's how I like to measure cycle time. Now, here's another cycle time measurement, a value stream where people tend to work alone. Same story, right? A different way of working. This, because everybody has to wait for people to be available, their cycle time is 18.25 hours. Very big difference from 5.25, right? 18.25 is over 3 days. So, or about three
Yeah, it's a
days,
huge,
something like,
huge difference.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, huge, huge difference. So, um, that's why I really like to talk about cycle time.
Okay. Okay, Yona, I think we are good for this session. I have taken your given time 1 hour approximate. So I'm sure that people will learn a lot from this session. And of course, I will put all the links in the description so they can always visit their blogs and they can go in depth with all these examples. So that's wonderful. And I hope that we will have you in more sessions, with you in the future, Johanna. I know, I mean, it's again a time difference, but then, but that perfectly okay, I think. I will try to find some time from you in future as well. So again, thanks a lot, Johanna, for coming us and sharing all your wisdom. Thank you, Johanna, one more time.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks a lot. I'm now just stopping this session. Bye, everyone.